Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2019 and the third part of this experiment where we have the perfect player in FM19. Now after the last episode, our player had been doing fantastically well. He'd won a number of Champions League titles, a number of Premier League titles. He was banging in the goals for Manchester City. When we have a look at his biography, you can see everything that he's managed to win in his time at Manchester City and elsewhere, getting 4 Premier League titles and 4 Club World Championships, 4 Champions Leagues as well. He has really racked up his number of competition wins and done exceptionally well. But now you can see he's not at Manchester City. We have let him go. He is a free transfer. We have also changed his attribute details, for loyalty down from 20 to just 1. So hopefully that will encourage him to move clubs a lot more often rather than stay at Manchester City where he had been for his entire career. So he will now be forced to go to a different team. We don't know where he's going. I'm going to leave that totally up to the game. It's probably going to be another English side, given he's an English player. English players have a bias to stay at English clubs. But we will see if he does move abroad at any point. And hopefully we do get some record-breaking transfers going on as well, because a player of this ability really should be doing a lot. We're also going to see if he can do the business for England as well. If we have a look at the England side, we can see that they did win the World Cup with him in 2022. He broke the record for the most goals at a World Cup, scoring I think 14 or 15. And he's very close already, it was pointed out, to becoming the all-time World Cup top goal scorer. So if he manages to do that, that would be quite impressive. If we look here at the past records, I'm sure he'll be on here. Most overall goals by a player in a season, 15. Jenkaldo Jr. is right there. Raheem Sterling got 8 assists at that World Cup as well, most of them probably for Jenkaldo. So not a bad record at all. Most player of the match awards in a season as well, he got 6. Which is nearly one every single game. So he has been doing exceptionally well. And you can see there, most goals in the season. But what we're going to do now is just go forward 1 year and we'll see what club he's ended up at. Well, we have now gone 1 year into the future, and you can see that Jenkaldo Jr. has moved to Tottenham Hotspur. So this is his new club. Now, when we did this experiment, I think a couple of years ago, the player did end up at Spurs as well. So he's moved there on a free transfer, but he's worth £85 million. So that is a good bit of business for Spurs there, bringing him in. If we just have a look here, you can see he's on 225 grand a week, which I think is less than he was on when he was playing for Manchester City. But if we take a look at how his first season at Tottenham Hotspur went, you can see that he did get a couple of goals in his debut friendly, not playing very much after that. They've got Memphis Depay at the club now. A couple of goals here away in China, and then didn't score there. But on his Premier League debut, he didn't manage to get a goal. It's actually a little while before he seems to score here. He does get a goal here away against Cardiff, his first Premier League goal for the club. And then the goals do start coming in. He's on a bit of a scoring form. Obviously, he's up against Harry Kane at the moment as well, playing for Spurs. But a hat-trick here against Fulham away from home. And it looks like he is starting to maybe nudge Harry Kane out of the team a little bit. The goals starting to increase in their regularity. They're doing reasonably well. They're in the Europa League, which isn't ideal. I'm surprised he went to a Europa League team. He knew they were in the Europa League when he signed for them, so interesting that they managed to pick him up. They did manage to beat Manchester United away. He got a couple of goals there. How did they do against Man City? Have they played Man City yet? I don't think they have. They have here a 2-1 win, and he scored the winning goal against his former team there, away from home as well. Poor run of form here for Spurs, but they did make it to the knockout stages. 2-1 win there. 2 players sent off in that game with about 20 minutes left to go. I'm amazed they got the win, but they did manage to. They also won in the second leg, beat Schalke 2-0 at home and 2-1 away. He scored in that game. Another red card there. They also got past Lyon despite losing the first match in the return leg. Jenkaldo Jr. scoring as they got through to the semi-finals. A 3-2 win here over Hoffenheim where he got the winning goal, and 4-0 at home where he got a goal there as well. And they did win the Europa League. 2 goals in 1 minute in the final for them, and he has helped them lift that. If we look at the Premier League table, you can see they actually finished in 5th place. So they've qualified for the Champions League Champions League as Europa League winners. They're a good way off the top, but Manchester City, without Jenkaldo Jr., have fallen away and not been able to secure the title after winning it 6 years in a row. That is quite the drop-off for them. But Spurs doing very, very well there. And if we have a look at Jenkaldo Jr. himself, he has finished as the top goal scorer in the league with 32 goals. Best player, most player of the matches as well. He's had an all-around good time. And you can see 32 league goals is more than he got at Manchester City in one season, so he's done very well there. 10 assists as well. 31 player of the match awards in 38 games is quite something. And you can see when the Golden Shoe, best player in Europe as well, broke the Tottenham record for assists in a season with 18, so he's getting assists as well as goals. Player of the season in the Europa League, just the one trophy that they didn't manage to win anything more than that. Now it is 2024, which means that if we have a look at the England side, they are currently in the European Championship and they're doing a lot better than the last time. A 4-0 win here and then a 2-0 win here. Harry Kane, the man getting the goals. Jenkaldo Jr. is playing, but Harry Kane is outshining him at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. 4 goals for Harry Kane already there after being completely put in Jenkaldo Jr.'s shadow at the World Cup. He's looking to come back, but they're almost certain to progress to the knockout stages of the European Championship. But can they win it? That's the question. Now I'm going to go forward 2 more years now, and we'll run through it maybe a little bit quicker, but see if they can win this European Championship. Well, we are now 2 more years into the future, and as you can see, Jenkaldo Jr. no longer plays for Spurs, and he no longer plays in England. He has moved to PSG, where he is earning 250 grand a week. He actually moved there pretty quickly. We've gone forward, this was his first full season at Spurs. We've gone forward just 2 years, but he must have moved in the summer here for £108 million, which feels like a pretty cheap deal to me. I mean, Spurs have made a huge profit in just 2.5 seasons there. But he's still keeping the goal scoring record going. Now let's start with Spurs and have a look at their senior squad schedule. Drop it back to where we started off, which was here, I think, wasn't it? Yep, that was the first season. Now in the second season, Harry Kane had a testimonial, which is quite interesting. But they started out really well, getting a lot of goals. Jenkaldo Jr. not scoring many of them. He did score in his first game though, and he started to get a few more. They lost the European Super Cup to Manchester City. Vergara getting sent off and Jenkaldo Jr. not scoring, and that caused a little bit of a poor run of form where they didn't get any victories for a little while, but he did get a few goals. Again, it doesn't look like he's been that prolific, but I'm sure when we get to the end of the season, he will have an awful lot of goals in his locker. And there's a lot more victories here than last season as well, I think. The Champions League seems to be going pretty well. They're getting a lot of victories. He is scoring goals in the Champions League. And in the league, they seem to be doing well as well. There's a few defeats popping up in the league. 4 there, 1 down here as well. So it'll be interesting to see where they finish up there. But their Champions League campaign went absolutely brilliantly. And they also got through in the Carabao Cup quarter-final over Norwich, through against Barnsley 3-1. And then in the Carabao Cup semi-final, they drew 1-1 at Anfield. Harry Kane with a late equaliser, but 2-0 at home. Men sent off for both teams, but Jenkaldo Jr. with a goal. And they did get through to the final. Lost to Borussia Dortmund 2-1 away from home. And then lost in the Carabao Cup final. Manchester City getting a win. Jenkaldo Jr. may be regretting leaving the club. And in the second leg of their Champions League tie, they did win 3-2, but it means that they were knocked. Oh no, did they go through their 2 away goals for Borussia Dortmund, 2 away goals for Spurs? Hang on. I'm very confused about this one. No, they lost. They got 1 away goal there, 2 away goals there. It was the order of the numbers that was throwing me out there. But they were knocked out by Borussia Dortmund on away goals. Quite unfortunate, really, because they went 3-0 up, but 2 late goals knocked them out. Manchester City, they beat in the FA Cup, so a bit of revenge there, and then Southampton dispatched 3-1, so an FA Cup final on top of their Carabao Cup final, which they lost, and they lost the FA Cup final as well. They were forced into extra time, but Mauro Icardi with the winner, and Jenkaldo Jr. seemed a little bit anonymous this year. not sure why he didn't seem to get as many goals. If we go back and look at his record in that season, he only got 27 goals in 38 games, 5 less than the year before, 43 in all competitions, whereas the season before he got 45. So maybe he was just scoring in the other competitions more than he was in the league. But he did get a lot more assists, so on balance, probably not that bad a season, but I think you'd be expecting him to get an awful lot more goals than he did there. Now, the following year, he wasn't here for the whole time. I think he left halfway through this season, so they were doing okay. Poor run of form here. But the rest of that season, we're just going to run through it. They did get to the Champions League quarterfinals, but beaten by rivals Spurs. Raheem Sterling scoring the winning goal, the only goal in those ties. And it doesn't look like they did that well in the Premier League either. If we have a quick look at that league table for the season, they actually finished second. So maybe if he had been there, they would have done a little bit better. Second that season as well. The season before that was the season that they finished in 5th place. But they were not far away that year. 4 points off Liverpool, who won the league. They nearly did take the Premier League title. And in the most recent season, 7 points off, but he was only there for half the year. If we go and look at PSG, though, this is where he finished the season. He got 13 and 17. But how did they do when he came into the squad? We're going to imagine that he probably did win a trophy here. If we sort this by date, there we go. So he must have joined in the January transfer window, which is around this point. They were doing all right in the Champions League and various other competitions, the Coupe de la Ligue as well. A lot of victories around this point here. They lost this game, and then I think he's probably been signed around here. He's not appeared in the team in that game or that game. So where does he appear in the team? That's the question. Oh, I wasn't even clicking on January, that'd be why. Here is where he appears in the team. There's 2-0 win in the Coupe de la Ligue after a 4-0 win in the French Cup. He didn't score on his debut, but against Lyon, no, it was all the way against Angers where they won 3-0. He did get his first goal from the penalty spot. A couple of goals against Nice, a really nice winning run, a hat-trick, his first in the French League, or in the Coupe de la Ligue anyway, against Rennes, meant they made it to the Coupe de la Ligue final. Won in the game against Saint-Etienne 2-1 there, and then scored in the French Cup 10th round. 1 goal in that game. 3-0 in the league as well, in the Champions League knockout stages, drawn against Spurs, and he did score, but Harry Kane with a late penalty there means it was taken to the game back at Spurs, and they did lose 1-0. Harry Kane getting the better of Jenkaldo Jr. there, as they were beaten in the Champions League knockout stages. But their league form absolutely sensational. A lot of victories popping up. He's getting a lot of goals as well. Won in the French Cup 11th round. French Cup quarterfinal, a 2-0 win there. And they did win the Coupe de la Ligue. He scored twice in that game. 10.0 rating. He's playing alongside Neymar and Mbappe now. That is a very dangerous attacking force. Won in the French Cup semi-final 3-1. And in the final, they did win that as well. So they won Liga and 2 domestic cup competitions. If we look at the league table, they won it by quite a way. 101 points, not unbeaten though. So not a perfect season for him. But we do now need to have a look at the England team and see if they did manage to win in their European Championship. So if we can see they're in the World Cup at the moment. Now they did get through their group, a 2-0 win over Ukraine. Jenkaldo Jr. scoring there. 3-2 against Wales, a tight game there, but they did manage to come through. They went 3-1 up. David Brooks brought it back. 2 for Jenkaldo Jr. there. Beat Portugal 4-1. He got a hat-trick there. And then in the semi-final, a 5-0 win. He scored 4 goals in that game as well. So Harry Kane had 4 goals in his first 2 games when Jenkaldo Jr. had none. And then he scores his first goal here to make it 4-1. Then it's 4-3. And then it's 4-6 and then 4-10. So after scoring 4 goals in his first 2 games, he probably thought, right, I'm going to get a golden boot this time. And Jenkaldo Jr. scores 10 goals on his way to the final. Harry Kane did score in the final, but can you believe it? A penalty shootout defeat to Germany. Fiat Arp scored, Müller and Kimmich missed after Lingard scored here. But then Reece Nelson and Will Hughes missed. I assume Jenkaldo Jr. would have been the 5th penalty taker. But it never got to that point and they were knocked out. And that's the danger with not putting your strikers up first. Why are Harry Kane and Jenkaldo Jr. not taking those penalties? That's the question. These guys were sent off within a minute of each other. That must have been one heck of a final at the Olympiastadion in Berlin. So Germany winning the European Championship on their home turf, on penalties, against England. That is quite funny. The rest of their games going pretty well. European Division League A, he's scoring quite a lot of goals. I'm going to be interested to see what his goal game record is for England after this. And they did make it to another International League semi-final, although they won 2-1 against Italy, but in the final, beaten by Germany on penalties. They learnt their lesson and put him up first this time, but again, they just couldn't beat the Germans on penalties. Absolutely ruthless. And another defeat in the final to Germany. Confederations Cup, though, went a lot better. 3-0 win over Canada. They then beat Brazil 1-0. 2-0 win over Australia as well. 1-0 against the USA in the semi-final. And Brazil again in the final. They did win 3-0. A really good run of form here. Only really beaten on penalties across a really long period of time. And in the most recent campaign, 6-0 over New Zealand there. 3 goals for Jenkaldo Jr. And then another hat-trick, back-to-back hat-tricks in the World Cup. Mean that he definitely is the standalone top goal scorer in the World Cup. If we just have a look here at the previous winners of this competition, you can see that there. The awards, what am I looking for here? I'm looking for the stats, the player overview stats. There are none. We seem to have lost all of the details from previous years. So we can't see who the best players are. I don't know why that we can't see records. There we go, that's what I'm after. Biggest win, 7-1 France versus Greece in October 1958. Is Jenkaldo Jr. Most overall goals by a player in a season, 10. Most goals in a match, 4. Most assists, again, Raheem Sterling really benefiting out of this. But if we have a look at his overall goals game record, he scored 107 goals for England at 24 years old in 81 games. What a record that is. Absolutely unbelievable. His career stats doing pretty well as well in the league. He got 23 and 28 in France, 22 and 31 here as well, and 43 and 58 the year before that. His milestones, he's won the Golden Shoe, best player in Europe, 3rd place. That's a good question actually. How's he been doing in the Golden Ball? If we go and have a quick look at this, he is still winning it. It doesn't matter where he is. He won it with Man City 3 years in a row. And then he won it at Spurs in his first season, 38-56 there, beating Nabil Fekir and Mo Salah as well. Then he won it again in his second year, and in his most recent season, shortly after that moved to PSG, so it hasn't shown up as a PSG win, but you have to imagine he's going to keep on picking up this award. Player of the Year as well, he's winning that every year. Team of the Year, I assume he is always going to be in that as the Golden Ball winner. And Footballer of the Year is actually gone to Mbappe this time, ahead of Jenkaldo Jr., so that's quite interesting. Is he still winning the Golden Boy competition, though? That's the question. It looks like he won it every year, and then he probably became too old at this point to keep winning it because he's over 21, I think is the cutoff. But his career is still absolutely flying at the moment, it has to be said. And now he's at PSG. It's going to be interesting to see if he stays there or if he does move to a different team, because PSG obviously have the financial firepower to not need to sell him and not raise his wages. Have to limit his wages. So I'm sure he will probably be here for a little bit of time. But can he win a Champions League title? Because he hasn't won one for quite some time now. Since leaving Man City, really. He won a Champions League title here. It's been 3 years without one since. So can he win it back? And can he win more trophies with England? That's the question. Now, if you are enjoying this experiment, do drop a like on the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. Next time we will go 5 years into the future with this player. If you do want to see a next part, make sure you hit that like button. But until next time, see ya.